There's never a dull moment when it comes to Minnesota sports. Whether it's positive or negative.
The Yankees have swept the Twins.
Minnesota Sports Chat has you covered. Talking nothing but Minnesota sports all year long. It's time now for the soon-to-be award-winning, if only in his own mind, Minnesota Sports Chat with your host, Ross Brendel.
Well, for those of you watching on the YouTube machine, off to a bit of a lagging start for edition number 227 of the soon-to-be award-winning Minnesota Sports Chat presented by my friends at Beans Coffee Company. It's another Gophers review and preview edition with Daniel House from Gophers Guru. The Gophers did what most of us Gophers fans expected and all of us hoped for by breezing past Rhode Island by a final score of 48-0 this past Saturday. They'll step up in competition a bit this Saturday when 1-2 Nevada out of the Mountain West comes to town for a kickoff at a dentist's favorite time. That would be 2:30 at Huntington Bank Stadium. We'll get to Daniel House in just moments. From the looks of it, from my seat in section 235, I can confirm the Gophers offense looked much less sluggish on Saturday against Rhode Island. They clearly got into the Beans Coffee. With a blend and roast for any palate, Beans Coffee Company, they can help get you going, just like the Gophers offense got going on Saturday. Even the Vikings offense, led by our guy Slingin' Sam Darnold on Sunday. Beans Coffee Company ships for free on all orders of $35 or more. I personally recommend that Profectus blend. If you're looking to test the waters, that may be the way to go. The website is coffeebybeans.com. That is coffeebybeans.com. Use the promo code SPORTSCHAT. That is SPORTSCHAT to save at checkout. We welcome in now Mr. Daniel House. But actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's give the Gophers their due.
First and goal from the 6. Rosmer to pass. It is a touchdown for Minnesota to Christian Driver. See if this game continues the way it's been going. We see even more from the running back depth for Minnesota as Rosmer taking a shot. It's blocking. Touchdown. Second and 18 for the Clemson transfer. Hunter Helms in at quarterback. Pocket was collapsing. It's intercepted. And there's a path to the end zone for Jack Henderson.
Those highlights courtesy of our friends at NBC and Peacock. Mr. Daniel House, 48-0. The Gophers breeze past Rhode Island. I would like to thank myself for encouraging Max Brosmer to go on a little bit of a heater, as the kids like to say, because just moments after I tweeted he might not be very good, he goes on to put together an impressive rest of the day against Rhode Island. 24 for 30, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns. But, however, not to be too negative, it is just Rhode Island. But I will submit this to you, Daniel House, when you play a team like Rhode Island, especially coming off of a loss to North Carolina in a game I think many feel like should have been won by the Gophers, it's about as good of a result as you can hope for, despite a little bit of a slow start this past Saturday.
Felt like the play at the start of the second quarter to Jamison Gears was the spark they needed. Him finding the soft spot in the zone and getting the first down, and then building off of quick game concepts, getting the ball out quick, doing some things schematically with concepts that they introduced throughout the course of the game, and then tweaking them slightly. A lot of influence from like a Kyle Shanahan offense. I wrote about that on the website. You can read the breakdown on it, but you take what the defense has given you. A lot of zone coverage, a lot of stuff underneath. Now we'll see what the game plan is from other teams. I think this week Nevada, they are a really good team at getting their hands on the football. Their defensive backs are ranked 21st in DB havoc rate. So how often, the percentage of defensive plays where you get a pass breakup or an interception, they're going to be a physical team in the back end. And I think they're going to have a little bit of a different approach than Rhode Island did from a schematic standpoint.
Let's talk a little bit about the defense. I think they've been the first 2 weeks of the season, they've been about the least of the Gophers' troubles. They were pretty good, maybe very good against North Carolina. And even though, again, it's an FCS opponent, holding a team to less than, I think, 200 and some yards, House? I know I had it in front of me at some point, but 135 total yards. That's what it was. 135 total yards, 27 first downs for the Gophers, just 6 for Rhode Island. I mean, that's pretty darn good no matter who you're playing.
Yeah, I don't think that they had a play in Minnesota territory until like the fourth quarter. And so Minnesota's defense was pretty fresh just based on the fact that the play disparity was 72-43. And you get a takeaway on the interception by Aiden Gooseby. Then you get the strip sack fumble by Devin Eastern. So the defense creating some takeaways put the offense in position to do some things, especially the second one. And then Jack Henderson creating the pick six. I mean, they really had a lot of success defensively getting their hands on the football. And I think that was related to defensive line playing with a lot more pop in their hands, especially against the run, being able to generate more knockback. I thought they were way more physical at the line of scrimmage, which you should be. You're playing an FCS line. Like, this is a game where you want to see them win the line of scrimmage and move people around to maximize their versatility. I think that's one of the things to watch for, Ross. They had a dime package in there where they got Coy Parrish on the field and Kerry Brown was the dime back. So there's a lot of stuff that they've been putting in the defense to be multiple based on the type of team that they're playing.
One thing that I think will go unnoticed by a lot of people, but I think it was a big plus from the game, was getting Drake Lindsay in for about a full quarter, being able to actually take some real passing reps and throw a passing touchdown. He can play in as many as 4 games this year without burning that red shirt. And in today's NIL and transfer portal, who really knows what that will or won't mean for the Gophers? But I think ideally you'd like to hold on to that red shirt. But I think it's nice to get him some playing time here early in the season in case, due to injury or inability at the quarterback position, he ends up playing more than we expect that he will. So I think it was nice to see him out there. And House, he's a big kid. I mean, he's a tall kid. I mean, that was evident from where I was sitting in the 200 level at Huntington Bank Stadium this past Saturday. He sticks out. He should have no problem seeing over defenders looking for open receivers and tight ends.
Yeah, I've said it for a while. He's an impressive talent. I thought he was pretty underrated in that recruiting class. I mean, I watched one workout that he had about a year ago, and you could see the anticipation trait right away, like throwing receivers open, which is the trait that is so incredibly important. And you mentioned the size, like just the football knowledge that he has. He's really immersed himself well. Even I felt like in the spring he didn't look overwhelmed when he got here. Like, he was picking it up, and he's got work to do, but to get him action in a game is important. They're able to play a lot of guys, which I think, playing a lot of guys and also still throwing the football. I think that was effective too, where it wasn't like, he's coming in to just hand the ball off. Like, they actually continue to do things that they do in a live setting in the game.
Quick Darius Taylor question, then we'll move on to some Nevada preview. Was it all important? Well, actually, I'll backtrack again. He must truly have not been able to play and really not been in a great spot if he couldn't play against North Carolina, but then 10 days later was able to play against Rhode Island. Did they really need to get him some game action before Nevada, or could they have just used Nevada to be the game versus taking any chances against Rhode Island? I guess I'm just kind of wondering about that, because when Darius Taylor didn't play game 1 against North Carolina, I assumed we wouldn't see him until Iowa. So I was surprised to see him play against Rhode Island. And I guess my thought being, if we can just avoid contact for another week, I don't think he needs to play against Rhode Island to win this game. So that just jumped out to me. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just kind of wondering the thought process there.
I thought it was good if he was ready to go to get him some contact, because you don't want to be throwing him in there in Iowa, and that's the first contact he's had in weeks. Like, just getting him a few carries to ease him back in. I actually thought his comfort level looked like it was growing as the game went on. Like there's something to be said for getting back into live action, especially after injury in the running back position. Like the speed and pace at which you run, the vision that's required. Like there are things that you just have to do in a live game setting with contact. I mean, Ross, really, when you think about it, like training camp, you can't really simulate that either because you're not taking people to the ground very often. Maybe twice in the whole, realm of training camp are you taking people to the ground. So I think getting some contact in, getting his legs underneath him is a wise move, especially as they start to play these more competitive games coming up.
Nevada comes in at 1-2. It's a definite step up in competition, but it's a game that the Gophers, in my belief, should win and hopefully are able to win by 10, 14, maybe even more points than that. Nevada 1-2. They have a win on the road against Troy, but losses at home to SMU and most recently to Georgia State. For whatever it's worth, Daniel, per ESPN's matchup predictor, the Gophers have an 83% chance at winning on Saturday. What can you tell us about Nevada before we take a quick look around the Big Ten?
Big fan of Jeff Choate, the head coach. Very well coached team. I think that's one of the most dramatically improved programs in college football right from the jump. I mean, that team was literally probably dead last in my eyes last season and where that was at. And to come in and get it where it is now, just from a personnel standpoint, schematic stuff. You look at offensively, Brendan Lewis, a quarterback the Gophers had played before when he's at Colorado, fits the system well, option stuff that they're going to have to account for in the run game, lots of eye candy. So eye discipline is going to be really important. Cortez Bram, the wide receiver, I think he's pretty talented. 3 good backs out of the backfield. Savion Red breaks a lot of tackles. Defensively, Caden Johnson coming back from Minnesota. Dislocated his elbow in the last game. Uncertain if he's going to be able to go, but I think the best player on the defensive side of the ball is Keaton Crawford, transfer from Texas. Good ball skills, physical, quick, trigger downhill. Watch for 4 in this game. He's a really good player. And like I said earlier, defensive backs are really aggressive and make plays on the ball. So Minnesota, we'll see what the approach is schematically from Nevada. I think you're going to see them be pretty aggressive and try to get Minnesota into opportunities where they don't have as many zone windows to throw into. They're going to tighten those windows up and make Minnesota do some things schematically to get their receivers open versus some tighter coverage.
Don't worry, Daniel, I'm keeping the under.
Let's take a quick look around the Big Ten, Daniel. How about that? We'll close this one out. Some intriguing non-conference matchups here. You have Oregon taking on Oregon State. That'll be kind of fun just because of the rivalry. You'd like to think that Oregon will win that, but Oregon State's turned themselves into a nice little program. Obviously, new first-year head coach, right? Because our guy Smith went to Michigan State, correct?
Yep, and the DC was promoted. So
correct. Okay, thank you for that. And then we also have the Apple Cup, Washington State taking on Washington. But I think the apple of everybody's eye, Daniel House, will be Alabama at Wisconsin. This is not me talking shade about Wisconsin. We know I'll do that throughout the year. But does Wisconsin have any realistic chance to keep this game close on Saturday against Alabama?
I guess I'm intrigued by this game just because it felt like Wisconsin the first 2 weeks, the execution wasn't as tight, especially in the pass game. I thought they were trying a lot of different things. The big storyline for me with Wisconsin is when James Thompson, the defensive lineman, went down with an injury. He's going to be out a significant period of time. That defensive line, are they going to be able to hold up in the run game against Alabama? I think you're going to see them put in a lot of wrinkles with Milroe running. Get them in a spot where they're able to really control the line of scrimmage. That's the thing that I'm watching for, because I feel like Wisconsin's secondary is talented. They got a lot of really good players in that area. It's just going to be whether they can hold up along the defensive line. And then offensively, do they execute better? I just feel like detail lapses have been prevalent through the first 2 games, especially in the passing game. And you kind of expect that as Van Dyke kind of works his way into Phil Longo's system. So we'll see how this plays out. It's an interesting game for me.
Not a ton else jumps out to me on the schedule over the weekend, Daniel. Maybe there's something else that you're looking forward to watching. I am mildly intrigued to see how Boston College plays at Missouri just because they're off to a nice start. They got that win over Florida State, 2-0 to start the year with new head coach Bill O'Brien, who I think did a pretty admirable job at Penn State in his short time there. I think that's a great job for him. When they hired him, I thought that was a perfect place for Bill O'Brien. Also kind of knows the area well. He has that NFL connection. I think he's going to do well at Boston College. I don't think he'll do well this weekend. I think that's a mismatch from the jump, but I think I'm intrigued to see, can he prove me wrong? Has Boston College truly in one offseason closed those gaps enough where he can maybe stick with Missouri on the road in Columbia?
The Boston College personnel department is built well. I find that just looking at their roster, who they're targeting and recruiting. Their offensive line this year, I think, is very good, which is going to help them be competitive in every single game. Unique approach to roster construction in terms of what they value. And I think that was really a good idea in the transfer portal to take a look at some of the positions that they did and add those players. Like, they really value the interior of the defensive line too, which I think is important.
Buddy, what is at gophersguru.com for people to check out? I'm actually looking forward to the game on Saturday. It will be nice to see how the team responds from beating Rhode Island again, like I said, handily, like I think we all hope that they would. But it's a definite step up in competition with Nevada. So I'm looking forward to that before we head into Iowa week. But what will we find at gophersguru.com?
Huge breakdown on the offense, looking at some of the concepts they're able to run to have success and find a groove in the passing game. Huge preview coming on Nevada, some of the things to watch for in that game. And then tomorrow, coordinators and player availability. So I'll be at that. And, I'm ready for this game too, Ross. Get to see Jeff Choate, that guy. I tell you, I think he eats a bowl of nails for breakfast, man. I love that guy's philosophy and his mindset. Good coach.
He eats a bowl of nails for breakfast. PJ Fleck eats tough conversations for breakfast.
The battle of nails versus conversations.
We know that from his introductory presser. That is Daniel House at Daniel House MN on the X Machine. I am at the Ross Brendel. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. No matter how you're listening to this podcast, please share with your friends. Rate and review kindly. I'd appreciate it. I'll be back in this feed very soon.
Thanks for listening to Minnesota Sports Chat, presented by Beans Coffee Company. Use the promo code SPORTSCHAT. That's one word, Sports Chat, to save at checkout. Follow Ross on X at the Ross Brendel. Like and subscribe to Minnesota Sports Chat wherever you get your podcasts. Rate and review kindly.